All right, real quick, I'm going to run through some inputs and outputs. First thing I'm going to introduce you to is USB, and you probably know what USB is, but just in case, we're going to go over the 5+ different formats that you might run into while making music. Hold on, your head might spin. First and foremost, we have the OG. This is what's called a USB-A cable, okay? Until recently, it was referred to as a printer cable, because printers were generally connected to computers with these kind of cables. It's as close as what they have to a standard USB cable these days until the newer formats kind of take over, which is already happening. But for right now, this is still the most common USB cable you will see in music production. So what we have is two ends, one which is kind of a boxy looking thing, and the other end which is more of a rectangular shape. And so these two different sides are what's going to plug into, usually this side plugs into a device, and this side plugs into a computer. A lot of times laptops don't have this type of port on them nowadays, especially MacBook Air and the thinner laptops. So you will need an adapter to use a cable like this with a newer laptop. Luckily, they're plentiful and cheap. This was free. I came with my phone. This is what's called a USB-A to USB-C adapter, and it plugs in like this. Okay, so now you can plug this cable and by extension any device that has this type of output into any computer. So this is all you really need. This is what's called a USB-A cable. If anybody ever talks about USB-A and USB-B, USB-B is actually this connector, this square. You're like, oh yeah, there's USB-A and USB-C. That's what they're talking about when they say USB-B. So you would plug this in. This is an audio interface. You plug this in to USB-B port, USB-A socket onto the computer. Boom, you're done. That's all you need. And if your computer has a USB-C, then you would plug this guy in and you adapt it to a USB-C connector. Now, I will explain what USB-C is. USB-C is the newer version and the most common version of USB port, especially considering the laptop involvement and phones. So I'm gonna pull out this cable here. This right here is a USB-A to USB-C cable. Now, you might be wondering why you would use one of these. Well, a lot of times you can use this for phone chargers. A lot of phone chargers have a USB-A port in them. You plug them into the brick, you plug them into the wall, and then you've got this to plug your phone in. So this is a USB-C. So you're probably not going to see this type of format that often. But in the case of one of my interfaces, this is the Focusrite 18i8. This has a USB-C port. All you would have to do is plug this cable into here and plug this into your computer and you're good to go. This one actually also needs power, so keep that in mind. Some of these interfaces also need power in addition to needing the data port. So why are there two different port types? I mean, you tell me. I mean, things evolve. Why did CDs come out and then MP3s and then streaming? Because things evolve. So that's exactly what you're seeing here. So I'm going to go through some really confusing old formats that you might encounter that were steps along the way between USB-A and USB-C. Ta-da! Cable freaking mayhem. Look at this. All right, so we've got what looks like 5 different kinds of different formats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different kinds of formats. Are you confused? You should be. It's confusing. Why do they have so many different formats? Like I said before, things evolved over time. Ports got smaller and smaller and then became more practical after that. Okay, so the first port, remember, this is the OG, this is the USB-A port. This is still used pretty commonly with most computers that are bigger than a small laptop. After this guy came something called USB 3. That is this format. You might see this, pretty commonly, not a letter, it's USB 3. Technically, this is a USB 2 port speed-wise, and this is a USB 3 port speed-wise. So the only difference between these two is speed. All right, so ignore everything else. There's also something called USB 3.2, which has different colors. Sometimes it's orange. I've seen green also. That's much faster than this format. So when you see different colors, that just means they're different speeds. You don't even need to remember if it's 1, 2, or 3. There's basically nothing that's USB 1 anymore. That was this format from the 90s. It no longer exists in a practical sense. I think this came out in like the early 2000s. It was much faster than USB 2, which was a total relief to everybody at the time. But anyway, if you see different colors, that's different speeds. So let's move on. We're down to 5 formats now, so we can get some confusion out of the way. Again, This is USB-A, right? This is most common format, standard USB, all right? Next, in chronological order, this is mini USB. So it's got kind of a trapezoid shape here, you'll see. There's not many devices that still use this format. This is probably a 15-year-old format by now. Some older keyboard controllers, like I think the MPK or the APK, Akai controllers use this, that have that port on the back of them, so that you might need that. That is mini USB, all right? So mini USB, USB-A, mini USB. Next one that you're gonna see is micro USB. This is more common. This kind of got phased out in the last 6 or 7 years, I think. Still some things show up, rarely show up with this format. It's not a great format. It's really just a smaller version of USB. It's not faster or anything like that. So this is called micro USB. So they've got mini USB and then micro USB because it's obviously smaller than mini USB. So you got USB-A, standard USB. You've got mini USB, the trapezoid, and then you got micro USB, which is also trapezoid, but it's a lot thinner, so it's hard to tell. All right, so that's 3. I'll get those out of the way. Next thing you're gonna see is USB-C. Hallelujah, this is what we have right now. This is the most common port that you will see. That's of a miniature size compared to A, okay? You're gonna see audio interfaces with this. You're gonna see laptops with this. A lot of the newer desktop computers have this format. This is something that's gonna be the most common going forward. Also, the EU just passed a resolution, I believe last year, that said Apple is not even allowed to use their old Magic cables anymore for charging their phones for reasons that it was creating too much e-waste. This right here is a lightning cable, this blue cable. It's kind of odd because it's blue, but it's third party. It's not an official Apple connector. Why did I include this? Just because this is something you're going to encounter. It's really not something that's used in music production much. I mean, you might connect an iPad to some computer. I don't know. I don't use iOS devices in music making, so I'm not real familiar with that. But you will occasionally have it. Why do I have it? Because I have an old iPhone that I have to charge sometimes. Just thought I'd include that to confuse you even more. Anyway, so this is our lineup. Let's just discard this one to make things simpler, because you probably won't run into that unless you're using an iPad or an iPhone to make music. So here you go. The lineup. The original, the OG, the Type A standard USB, the mini USB. This is the trapezoid shape one. This is the micro USB, more recent format, not quite a modern port yet, but smaller, more compact than either of these two. And then finally, we have the USB-C. Out of the 4 of these are the 2 that you're going to most commonly see, all right? You're going to see the USB-A, USB-C. As far as I'm concerned, for micro USB and for mini USB, if you have weird formats for some of these devices that you have, that's cool. Just keep the the general thing that I do is I keep the cord with the device, just so, because they're oddballs. So you don't want to be searching for a cord. That's going to break your flow and it's going to piss you off. I can't tell you how many times I looked around for a cord for an antique device that I wanted to use really bad. Do yourself a favor. Keep the cord with the device. In fact, I should probably get up right now and plug this back into what it was plugged into, but I won't. So here, I'm gonna show you a couple hubs. This is kind of an older hub. USB hubs are really super useful, especially if you use a laptop, or if you just don't wanna crawl behind a desktop computer and plug things in and unplug things all the time. It's really useful, so you can just stick it on your desktop, plug things in, plug things out. I have several of these laying around that are plugged in all the time. This is a USB 3 port. Remember what I said about color. These have blue, right? So they have a blue color, which means they have a speed of USB 3. Not really important, just something to say that maybe if you have a bunch of devices that are gonna go into one port from 3 or 4, you're gonna need something that's a little faster. It's actually really hard to find slow USB hubs these days, so don't worry about that too much. So that's one. That's a 4-port USB hub. Now I'm going to show you a more modern version, which is, I think this is about a year old. This is actually a USB-C to multi-port adapter. It is a USB hub technically, so I can take this device here and plug this into here, and then I can take my USB-C device and plug it into here, so that's A and C ports right there. Then remember, we got that blue, and that means fast. Faster, anyway. Oddly enough, USB-C is actually much faster than a USB 3 port, even though it has a fancy color. This is a multi-port design, so you have like another one of the USB 3 ports. You've got HDMI, which is like an output for a display, and then you can put little memory cards in this guy. So it's really pretty universal. This is something I would have killed for back in the day, but this is like 20 bucks. You could even get cheaper ones too if you want. I highly recommend having a few of these around just in case you need to plug in a bunch of stuff. You never know what you're going to come across in the music making world.